dim the lights, let the world outside fade. Put on a soft hum of distant wind or a crackling fire, if you like. This is not just history. This is a journey into the strange, the cruel, and the absurdly theatrical world of medieval justice. A time when punishment wasn't just about pain, it was about shame, spectacle, and making absolutely sure everyone was watching. Imagine this. You wake up in a cold sweat, your head pounding like a blacksmith's anvil, your mouth tasting like a pigsty, and regret had a baby. You don't remember much, just something about a church bell, a fountain, and possibly a duel with a goat. But before you can even stand, the door bursts open. The constable grabs you by the collar and drags you into the square. And there it is, waiting for you. A beer barrel. But not just any barrel. This one has holes, one for your head, two for your arms. You're shoved inside, arms pinned, head poking out like a condemned turtle. The crowd gathers. Children point. Your mother hides her face, not in shame, but in second-hand embarrassment. This is the drunkard's cloak, and you're wearing it. Now you waddle through the cobbled streets, the wood squeaking with every step, the lingering scent of last week's salted herring rising from the staves. Turnips fly. Laughter follows. You are no longer a man. You are a walking keg of shame. And this is considered mercy. Because in medieval Europe, justice wasn't just blind. It was also creative, petty, and deeply, deeply performative. If the drunkard's cloak was the walk of shame, then the cucking stool was its wet, splashy cousin, reserved mostly for scolds, women who talked too much, gossiped too loud, or dared to tell the baker his bread was stale. This punishment was simple. Strap you to a wooden chair, attach it to a long beam, and dunk you into the river. Or if you were really unlucky, the sewage ditch. Up and down you go, gasping, sputtering, learning your place in the grand order of things. And the name? Cucking stool? Don't let the modern meaning fool you. It comes from cucken, to defecate. Yes, you were being punished in the poop chair, and if you thought that was humiliating, just wait. Meet the shame flute, not an instrument, not even close. This was a heavy, clunky metal tube locked around your neck, your hands shackled as if you were playing it. Except it made no music, only silence and mockery. You were paraded through town like a one-man band of disgrace, the punishment for bad musicians, loud drunks, or anyone who made noise the mayor didn't like. Children shouted requests. Play the ballad of the cheating miller. Dogs barked in judgment, and if you tried to speak, your voice echoed inside the tube, making you sound even more ridiculous. This wasn't about justice. It was payback with flair. Then came the Brank's bridle, a medieval muzzle for nagging women, a metal cage for the head with a spiked plate shoved into the mouth, pressing down on the tongue. Try to speak? You'd stab yourself. Marched through town, drooling, silenced, the bridle often decorated with bells or horns to draw even more attention. Because if you're going to punish someone, you might as well make it a community event. And what about when there was no evidence? No witnesses, no proof. Then it was time for trial by ordeal. No lawyers, no juries. Just God's judgment, delivered via boiling water, hot iron, or cold rivers. Stick your hand into a cauldron of boiling water. Retrieve a stone. Wrap it up. Wait 3 days. If it's healed, innocent. If it's festering, guilty, and God approves. Or try trial by cold water. tied up and thrown into a river. If you sank, you were innocent, the pure soul accepted by the water. If you floated, guilty, rejected by nature itself, which, of course, meant the innocent drowned. But hey, divine justice. Then there was the pillory, the medieval social media roast. Head and hands locked in wood, left in the town square for hours, even days. Exposed to the sun, the rain, and the full fury of public opinion. Rotten vegetables, mud, dead fish. Pigeons, oh, the pigeons love the pillory. And the crowd, they brought signs, rhymes, sometimes a whole punishment wardrobe just for you. This wasn't about breaking bones. It was about breaking your reputation. And if standing still wasn't enough, there was the whipping carousel, a rotating post that spun the offender like a sad rotisserie chicken, so every villager could get a good look as the lash came down. Equal viewing angles, maximum humiliation, or the wooden donkey, a sharp, narrow beam you were forced to straddle. Weights tied to your feet, your pain on full display in the marketplace. Children brought snacks, the crowd laughed. And you learned the hard way that sitting can be torture. For the truly heinous, like killing your own family, there was pona cully, the punishment of the sack. Sewn into a leather sack with a rooster, a dog, a snake, and a monkey, symbols of betrayal, vigilance, ignored, treachery, and, well, no one really knows about the monkey, and then thrown into the river. Chaos, panic, drowning, all while sharing a sack with nature's most annoying roommates. Then came the breaking wheel, a cartwheel turned instrument of torture. Limbs broken, body stretched across the spokes, left on display as a warning. Or worse, tied and spun like a macabre fairground ride. And if you stole, well, medieval Europe had a simple policy: amputate the hand. An axe, a sword, a clean cut in the town square. Now you're not just punished, you're marked. A one-handed man in a world of labor. A walking reminder, don't steal. And if they didn't cut it off, they branded it. A red-hot iron pressed into your skin, a T for thief, an F for forger, turning your body into a permanent criminal record. No ID cards, no databases, just flesh that told your story. And for the worst of the worst, traitors, there was hanging and drawing. Hanged, but not to die. Cut down while still alive. Dragged through the streets. And then, well, let's just say the details are best left to the historians with strong stomachs. Because in medieval Europe, justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about spectacle. It was about making sure everyone saw it. It was about turning pain into performance and crime into theater. So the next time you think your hangover is bad, just be glad you're not stuck in a beer barrel being pelted with turnips while the whole town laughs. Because in the hierarchy of medieval justice, that was the spa day. And so ends the first act of tonight's journey, where law was loud, punishment was personal, and shame was the sharpest weapon of all. The echoes of jeering crowds and the clang of the pillory fade into silence. The barrels, the shame flutes, the dunking stools, all recede like nightmares at dawn. But the thirst for spectacle does not die. It simply evolves. It grows grander, louder, more magnificent, and more brutal. Let us now step forward in time, not just in years, but in scale, from the muddy streets of medieval towns to the heart of an empire, to a place where sand drinks blood, where gods watch from marble thrones, and where men fight not just for their lives, but for glory, for fame, for the roar of 50,000 voices. Welcome to the world of the gladiator. Section 2. Gladiatorial combat in ancient Rome, where blood was theater and death was a crowd-pleasing finale. Long before the Colosseum cast its shadow over Rome, before the sun blazed over polished helmets and the air trembled with the cry, Ave Caesar, Marituri te salutat. Before all of that, the gladiator began in silence, not in the arena, but in the funeral. Yes, the first gladiators weren't entertainers. They weren't celebrities. They were sacrifices. In the 3rd century BCE, Roman aristocrats believed that the spirits of the dead demanded blood, not metaphorically, literally. So at the funeral of a nobleman, 2 prisoners, often captured warriors or condemned criminals, were forced to fight to the death in the courtyard of a grieving household. No grandstands, no trumpets, just a clash of swords, the gasp of a dying man, and the belief that such bloodshed would honor the dead. But something unexpected happened. The mourners liked it. They were transfixed, not by grief, by spectacle. And Rome, ever the empire of ambition and expansion, saw an opportunity. Why mourn one man with a duel when you could win the love of an entire city with an army of fighters? So the games grew. They spilled out of courtyards and into the forum. Wooden arenas rose. The fights became longer, more elaborate, more theatrical. Nobles began staging gladiatorial combats not to honor the dead, but to win votes, to gain favor, to make their names thunder through the streets. And when Julius Caesar held the funeral games for his father, he didn't send out 2 fighters, he sent out hundreds. For days the city trembled with the rhythm of battle. Blood soaked the sand, crowds roared, and Caesar? He didn't just honor his father. He launched his political career on the backs of dying men. By the time the Colosseum was built, that colossal stone beast in the heart of Rome, capable of holding over 50,000 souls, the original meaning of the gladiator was all but forgotten. The religious rite had become imperial theater, and the gladiator, no longer a mere slave or prisoner, he was a paradox, despised by law, worshipped by the people, a man who lived at the bottom of society, yet whose face was carved into graffiti, whose name was whispered in taverns, whose body was admired like a god's. The life of a gladiator, slave, soldier, star. Most gladiators were not volunteers. They were prisoners of war dragged from the edges of the empire. Gauls, Thracians, Numidians, their freedom gone, their fate sealed. Or they were condemned criminals, given a choice, die now or fight for a chance to live. Or they were slaves bought by a lanista, the owner of a gladiator school, like livestock, but far more valuable. These schools were called ludi, singular, ludus, and they were not places of learning. They were fortresses of discipline. Behind high walls, under the watchful eyes of brutal trainers, gladiators lived a life of relentless routine. Dawn, weapons drills with heavy wooden swords. Morning, footwork, sparring, conditioning. Afternoon, more drills. More pain, more punishment. Evening, a meal of barley, beans, and dried fruit. The diet of a man built for endurance, not pleasure. They were fed well, better than most Roman laborers, because a dead gladiator was a wasted investment. They received advanced medical care, wine-soaked bandages, herbal salves, surgical tools, because every cut, every fracture had to be healed so they could fight again, and fight again, and fight again, until luck ran out. Because in the arena, luck was the only thing more important than skill. The arena, Rome's grandest stage. The Colosseum wasn't just an amphitheater. It was theater, religion, and politics, all fused into one. From the moment you entered, it was designed to overwhelm. Trumpets blared, banners fluttered. The sand, arena from which we get arena, glistened under the sun, untouched. For now, the crowd roared. Senators in the front rows, plebeians crammed into the upper tiers, children perched on their fathers' shoulders. And then, silence. The gates opened. Out stepped the gladiators. Some wore full armor, others nearly naked. Each had a role, a character, a fighting style. This wasn't random combat. It was choreography. Like a modern-day wrestling match, every pairing was designed for drama. Let's meet the cast. The Murmillo, heavy, slow, powerful. A fish-crested helmet, a broad shield, a short sword. Think of him as the tank. The Thrax Thracian, agile, quick, deadly. A small shield, a curved sword, a griffin on his helmet, built to outmaneuver. The Retiarius, the net fighter, bare-chested, armed with a trident and a weighted net. Light, fast, unpredictable, like a duelist from a fishing village. The Secutor, the predator, smooth helmet to prevent the net from catching. Heavy armor, relentless, built to crush the Retiarius, and the crowd loved the mismatch. Would speed defeat strength? Could the net trap the beast? Would the underdog survive? Each fight told a story, and the audience didn't just watch. They participated. The emperor's thumb, life or death. When a gladiator fell, the victor stood over him, weapon raised. The crowd roared, but it wasn't up to them alone. The final decision rested with one man, the emperor, or the magistrate presiding. Contrary to Hollywood, the thumbs up, thumbs down gesture wasn't exactly as we imagine. Most historians believe thumb turned inward toward the chest equals death. Thumb concealed or held flat equals mercy. But the emperor didn't act alone. He read the mood of the crowd. If the fallen gladiator had fought bravely, the people might shout, "Missio," release him. If he had cowered or fought poorly, they'd scream for blood. And so, with a flick of the wrist, the emperor decided, leave or die. And if it was death, the final blow came fast, to the throat, the heart, the temple. The body was dragged out through the Porta Libertinaria, the gate of death. The sand was smoothed, and the next act began, fame, fortune, and the wooden sword. For a lucky few, there was a way out, not just survival, freedom. The most celebrated gladiators could earn the rudies, a wooden sword. It wasn't a weapon, it was a symbol, the mark of a man who had fought his way out of slavery. And some gladiators became legends. Crowds cheered their names. Women adored them, even noble women, risking scandal for a night with a fighter. Merchants sold figurines of them. Poets wrote ballads. They were the rock stars of ancient Rome. But fame was fleeting. One bad fight, one misstep, and the sand would drink your blood. The legacy of the gladiator. When the games finally ended in the 5th century, crushed by Christian morality, economic collapse, and the fall of Rome, the gladiator didn't vanish. He became a myth. Medieval storytellers turned him into a knight. Renaissance artists painted him as a hero. Modern filmmakers made him a rebel, a man who defied tyranny with a sword in his hand and fire in his eyes. And today, When we say gladiator, we don't just think of a slave forced to fight. We think of courage, of defiance, of a man standing alone against the world, with the roar of the crowd in his ears and death at his feet. The sand has long since turned to dust, but the image remains fierce, unforgettable, alive. Because in the end, the gladiator's greatest victory wasn't in the arena. It was in surviving the centuries, and still making us ask, who will leave? Who will die? And what will the crowd decide? And so the curtain falls on the Colosseum. But the story isn't over, because next we climb not into the arena, but to the Capitoline Hill, where another kind of spectacle awaits. One not of blood, but of glory, of triumph, of a general riding in a golden chariot, his face painted red, a slave whispering in his ear, "Remember, you are mortal." But that is for Section 3. The roar of the Colosseum fades. The dust of the arena settles. The last echo of the crowd's cry, "Hail Caesar, those who are about to die salute you," dissolves into silence. But the air still hums with something greater than blood and sand. It hums with glory, with power, with the thunder of hooves, the gleam of gold, and the slow, deliberate climb of a man who has conquered an empire, not with a sword alone, but with fate, fortune, and the favor of the gods. We now leave the blood-soaked sand behind and ascend together to the Capitoline Hill, to witness not death, but divinity. Section 3. The Roman Triumph, a victory parade of gods, men, and mortality. Imagine this. Rome is holding its breath. The streets are swept. The balconies are draped in garlands of laurel and roses. Incense curls from bronze braziers, its sweet smoke weaving through alleyways like a prayer. Children stand on their tiptoes. Veterans straighten their backs. Merchants shutter their stalls, not out of duty, but because today commerce bows to history. Something is coming. Not an army, not a king, but a God walking among men. At least for one day, he is treated as one. This is the Roman triumph, and it is not a parade. It is theater. It is religion. It is politics. It is the ultimate performance of power. What was a Roman triumph? In ancient Rome, victory wasn't just measured in land taken or enemies slain. It was measured in spectacle, and the highest honor a Roman general could achieve, rarer than consulship, more glorious than wealth, was the triumph. A state-sanctioned procession through the heart of Rome, where a victorious commander rode in a golden chariot, dressed like Jupiter himself, hailed as a living god. But here's the catch. Not every general got one. In fact, most didn't. The triumph was jealously guarded by the Senate, not out of fairness, but politics. To earn it, you had to meet strict criteria. You must have been a commander with imperium, official military authority. Your war must have been fought against a foreign enemy, not Roman rebels. The war must be decisively won, truly over, and you must have killed at least 5,000 enemy soldiers. Even then, approval wasn't guaranteed. Rivals in the Senate could block it out of envy. Allies could push it through with a well-timed speech. So the triumph wasn't just a reward for victory. It was a second battle, fought not on foreign soil, but in the forum, with words, influence, and ambition. And if you won, the city of Rome would belong to you for one day. The morning of a triumph, a city transformed, the day began before dawn. The Campus Martis, the field of Mars, where armies mustered, became the starting point. Here, the triumphant general, the triumphator, prepared. But he didn't dress like a man. He dressed like a god. A purple toga, embroidered with gold, the toga pecta, worn only by emperors and Jupiter's statue. A laurel crown, the eternal symbol of victory. His face painted vermilion red, mimicking the ancient cult statue of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill. He was no longer just a general. He was Rome incarnate, and the city knew it. As the first horn sounded, the gates opened. The Porta Triumphalis, a gate reserved only for these sacred processions, swung wide, and the triumph began. The sacred route, a journey through power and memory. This was no random march. Every step was symbolic. The procession wound through the heart of Rome like a living story. From the Campus Martis, where war began, through the Porta Triumphalis, the gate of victory, along the Via Sacra, the sacred way, Rome's most prestigious street, past the Roman Forum, the center of politics, law, and public life, up the Capitoline Hill, the spiritual heart of Rome, to the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, where the triumph would end in sacrifice and divinity. Each stage was a message. We began in war. We walked through justice. And now we return victory to the gods. And the people, hundreds of thousands of them, lined every inch of the route. They didn't just watch. They participated. They cheered. They threw flowers. They sang. They wept. Because this wasn't just about one man. It was about Rome's eternal power, the spoils of war, a feast for the eyes. Before the general even appeared, the crowd was already dazzled, because the triumph began with treasure. Endless wagons rolled past, groaning under the weight of chests of gold and silver, lids flung open so all could see. Statues looted from enemy temples, now paraded like captives. Exotic animals, elephants, lions, symbols of Rome's reach to the ends of the earth. Painted battle scenes showing the enemy's defeat in vivid, graphic detail. This was propaganda in motion. Every glittering coin, every chained beast, every captured banner screamed, "Rome is unstoppable," and the people believed it. The prisoners of war, the human cost of victory. But then the mood darkened. After the gold came the captives, kings in chains, generals stripped of their armor, nobles in their finest clothes, now symbols of humiliation. They marched in silence, heads bowed, their former power reduced to spectacle. Behind them came their families, even women and children, paraded not out of cruelty, but to prove one thing: this war is over. Their world is gone. Ours remains. Some would be sold into slavery. Others, the highest ranking, would be executed at the end of the day, their blood spilled as an offering to Jupiter. This was the brutal truth beneath the glory. Triumph required sacrifice, and sometimes the sacrifice was human. The general arrives, a god on a chariot, and then silence. A hush falls over 50,000 voices, because he is coming. The triumphator, riding in a gilded chariot, pulled by 4 white horses, their manes braided with gold. He wears the robes of a god. The crowd erupts. Flowers rain down. Trumpets blare. Children scream his name. Veterans salute. This is the peak of a Roman life. To stand here in this moment is to touch immortality. But Roman wisdom knew no man is truly a god. And so, standing behind the general was a slave. And in his ear the slave whispered over and over, "Memento mori." Remember, you are mortal. a chilling counterpoint to the cheers, a reminder that even at the height of glory, death waits, that power is fleeting, that Rome, for all its might, is still ruled by time, the army, the true heroes. Behind the chariot came the legionaries, thousands of them, armor polished, shields gleaming, eagles held high. These were not faceless soldiers, they were heroes, and today they shared the victory. They wore laurel wreaths like their general. They sang songs, some praising him, others mocking him with bawdy humor. Because in Rome, even in triumph, there was no blind worship, only earned respect. And the army's presence was a silent warning. We gave you this glory, we can take it away. The final ascent to the temple of Jupiter. The procession now began the final climb, up the steep slope of the Capitoline Hill. The pace slowed. The air grew thick with incense. Priests in white robes swung censers, their chants rising like smoke. At the summit stood the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the most sacred place in Rome. Here the triumphator dismounted. He walked the last steps on foot, a gesture of humility before the gods. Inside the temple, he laid his laurel crown at the feet of Jupiter's statue. He offered golden wreaths. He sacrificed oxen, their blood spilled as thanks to the gods. And in that moment, his victory was no longer his. It belonged to Rome, to the gods, to history. The aftermath, power, politics, and legacy. When the last prayer was said and the last cheer faded, the triumph was over. But its consequences were just beginning. For the general, this day could mean everything. Election to higher office, immense political influence, a name carved into eternity. But it could also mean danger. Too much glory made you a threat. Senators whispered, "He wants to be king." Enemies plotted, because in a republic that feared tyranny, being too great was a crime. For the army, it was reward, land, bonuses, citizenship. For the people, it was bread and circuses, but real. For Rome, it was a renewal of faith. We are strong. We are blessed. The world belongs to us. The lasting echo. The triumphs eventually ended. As Rome fell, as emperors replaced generals, as Christianity rose. But the idea never died. It lives on in modern parades, presidential inaugurations, victory marches, military ceremonies, the salute, the band, the honor guard. Our language, triumph, still means ultimate victory. And in our imagination, because the triumph was more than a celebration. It was the moment a man touched the divine and was reminded he was not. It was power on display and power kept in check. It was Rome at its most glorious and most human. So the next time you see a leader riding in a motorcade, surrounded by flags and cheers, remember the chariot, the red-painted face, the whisper in the ear. Remember, you are mortal, because even in victory, humility is the final triumph. And now, as the echoes of the triumph fade from the Capitoline Hill, we turn our gaze once more, not to war, nor to glory, but to feast, to wine, to music, to the crusader banquets of the Holy Land, where power was not just wielded with swords, but with spices, silver, and song. Let us now step into the great hall where East met West, and where every bite told a story. Welcome to Section 4. The last echoes of the Roman triumph fade into the hush of dusk. The golden chariots, the laurel crowns, the whispers of mortality, all dissolve into memory. We leave behind the marble grandeur of Rome, the thunder of legions, and the divine pretense of emperors. Now we journey east, to a land of sun-baked stone, ancient faiths, and clashing worlds, to the Holy Land where crusader banners flutter on fortress walls, where the scent of roasting lamb mingles with frankincense, and where power is not only wielded with swords, but with spices, silver, and song. Section 4. Crusader feasts in the Holy Land, power, politics, and the banquet as a weapon in the Crusader states of Jerusalem, Acre, and Antioch. A feast was never just a meal. It was a statement, a performance, a battle fought not with steel, but with spectacle. Imagine this. The sun has just set behind the hills of Galilee. The air is cool, scented with olive wood smoke and the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine. Inside a great hall, high-ceilinged, torch-lit, its rafters blackened by centuries of firelight, the final preparations are underway. Long trestle tables stretch like rivers through the stone chamber. Heavy linen cloths cover them, weighted down by silver platters, polished goblets, and candlesticks that catch the flicker of 100 flames. Banners hang from the walls, the red cross of the Templars, the black and white of the Hospitallers. Not just decoration, but declarations of power. And then the guests arrive, the guest list, a map of power. This is no casual dinner. Every arrival is calculated. Heralds announce names like Thunder, Lord of Tripoli, Marshal of the Temple, Envoy from Byzantium, Merchant Prince of Venice. Knights in ceremonial tunics, their armor set aside but never forgotten, stride in, swords at their hips, eyes scanning the room. There are clergy too, bishops in embroidered robes, monks with quiet eyes, offering blessings that double as political endorsements. And then, most striking of all, Muslim envoys seated under truce, dressed in fine silks, sipping wine not out of indulgence, but diplomacy. Their presence is a silent message. We are at war, but even war has its pauses. And in those pauses, feasts are held. Because in the fragile kingdoms of the Crusaders, survival depended not just on walls and weapons, but on alliances. And alliances, they were forged over food. The table, a stage of abundance. Look at the spread. This is not just dinner. It is theater. Every dish is a symbol, every spice a declaration. At the center of the high table, reserved for the Lord and his most honored guests, lies a whole roasted peacock, its iridescent feathers reattached, fanned out in dazzling display. Beside it, sugar sculptures shaped like castles and lions, edible monuments to power. Bowls overflow with pomegranates, citrus fruits, dates, and dried apricots. Luxuries in Europe, but here, trophies of trade and conquest. Roasted lamb glazed with honey and lemon steams beside wild boar basted in spiced wine. Game birds are stuffed with figs, almonds, and saffron, a golden hue that whispers, "We have the wealth of two worlds." And the bread, still warm from the oven, crusty and fragrant, is broken not just to eat, but to bind. Because in this hall, to share bread is to say, "For tonight we are not enemies." The spice, where east meets west. If the food is the body of the feast, the spices are its soul. And here, in the Holy Land, the Crusaders stood at the crossroads of empires. From the east came cinnamon, dark and warm. Cloves, sharp as a blade. Nutmeg, fragrant and rare. Saffron, worth its weight in gold, turning rice and stews into liquid sunlight. Black pepper, once a luxury in Europe, now used freely, a sign of status, of access, of control. But the Crusaders didn't just copy, they fused. Their kitchens became laboratories of fusion cuisine. A lamb stew might simmer with rosemary from Provence and cinnamon from Arabia. Chicken could be basted with honey and lemon, a Levantine trick that stunned Western palates. Even humble barley was boiled in spiced broths, transforming the mundane into the magnificent. And the message? We are not just conquerors. We are curators of culture. Spices were not just flavor. They were currency. A lord who could season generously was saying, I command trade routes. I have allies in distant lands. My power reaches beyond these walls. And when Crusaders returned to Europe, they didn't just bring relics and stories, they brought recipes, spice samples, tastes that would reshape European cuisine for centuries. The Crusader feast in this way was not just a moment of indulgence, it was the beginning of a culinary revolution. The wine, the lifeblood of diplomacy. Now the drinks begin to flow. Wine, not just any wine, but vintages from Bordeaux, Rhineland whites, sweet Cypriot wines, carried across the Mediterranean in fragile casks, reserved for the high table. Their arrival is met with murmurs of appreciation, not just for the taste, but for what they represent: wealth, connection, luxury. But there is also local wine grown in Crusader vineyards, tended by monks, sometimes infused with cinnamon or cloves, turning it into a warming mulled drink, perfect for cool desert nights. On rare occasions, wine is chilled with snow from Mount Lebanon, a luxury so extravagant it has a power move. And then there are the alternatives: pomegranate syrup, sweet and tart; date juice, thick and rich; sherbets and chilled fruit drinks, borrowed from Arab traditions, served in polished metal goblets. But drink here is not just for pleasure, it is ritual. Toasting is a political act. Goblets are raised, to the host, a show of loyalty; to recent victories, a reminder of strength; to saints and kings, a nod to divine and earthly authority. Each toast is a knot tied in the web of power, and as the night deepens, the wine loosens tongues, stories grow grander, laughter echoes. For a few hours the weight of war lifts, and in that space, alliances are sealed, secrets are traded, promises are made. Because in the Crusader world, a shared cup could be as binding as a treaty. The entertainment, music as a bridge. Now the feast shifts from feast to festival. Minstrels step forward, troubadours from France, jongleurs from Italy singing chivalric ballads of knightly valor, their voices rising over the crackle of the hearth. But then another sound. From the shadows, Arab musicians appear. One plucks the oud, its strings winding like smoke through the hall. Another draws a haunting melody from the rebab, a fiddle of deep resonance. Drummers keep complex rhythms that make even armored knights tap their feet. And then, dancers clad in silks and jingling ornaments move with a grace that silences the room. Storytellers follow, weaving tales of Sinbad, Aladdin, or Alexander the Great, adapted for Christian ears. This is not just entertainment, it is cultural exchange, a moment where East and West do not clash, but harmonize. And for the nobility, there are games, riddling contests, where a wrong answer means forfeiting a goblet of wine, archery challenges in the torch-lit courtyard, poetry duels where wit is the only weapon. Every performance, every laugh, every shared story is part of the larger performance. We are refined, we are powerful. We belong here. The politics, the banquet as a chessboard. Beneath the music and mirth, the feast is political theater. Every detail is calculated. Who is invited? Arrival at the table is arrival under control. Where are they seated? Closer to the host means higher favor. Further away, a quiet warning. What is served? Offering rare spices or exotic wines is not just hospitality. It's a power play. Speeches are delivered. Toasts are made. A host might praise a merchant's generosity, a subtle nudge for future shipments. A bishop might bless an alliance, making it not just political, but divine. And in the corners, secrets are traded. Two knights slip into a side chamber to settle a land dispute. A commander and a trader agree on favorable terms. An emissary delivers a message that could change the fate of a city. The banquet is the safest public space for private deals. Even the music has meaning. A song celebrating a shared victory, a reminder of unity. A tale warning of betrayal, a veiled threat. Everything from the spice on the meat to the chair you sit in is part of the game. And by the end of the night, alliances are confirmed. Grudges are soothed. Obligations are understood. In the Crusader world, a battle could win a fortress, but a banquet could win a kingdom. The ritual, customs of a hybrid world. The feast follows a rhythm, not just of courses, but of ritual. It begins with a blessing, a high-ranking clergyman raising his hands, invoking God's favor. Guests bow their heads. Then hand-washing. Basins of scented water passed around, a sign of refinement and hygiene in a land where disease is ever present. Napkins of fine linen, a luxury. The meal unfolds in order. Fruits, salads, soups, light to awaken the palate. Roasted meats, stews, spiced dishes, the heart of the feast. Sweet pastries, preserved fruits, spiced wine, the finale. Between courses, entertainment, conversation, toasts. And at the end, a closing prayer. And tokens, small gifts given to guests. A pouch of spices, a sweetmeat, a piece of fine cloth. Not just generosity, a reminder. You were here. You were honored. You are bound to me. The legacy. When feasts outlive empires, the Crusader states would eventually fall. Jerusalem would change hands. Acre would burn. Castles would crumble into ruins. But the feast? It did not die. Because the knights, pilgrims, and merchants who dined in those halls carried something back with them. Taste. They brought cinnamon, saffron, cloves, not just as spices, but as symbols of a world beyond Europe. They brought recipes, lamb with dried fruit, chicken with almonds and cinnamon, dishes that would become staples in royal courts from Paris to London. They brought customs, the structured sequence of courses, the ritual of hand-washing, the practice of entertainment between meals, even the idea of the feast as a space where power, culture, and diplomacy meet endured. And in the East, the exchange was not one-sided. Eastern cooks, musicians, and storytellers who served in Crusader households carried back Western tastes, meats, wines, manners, and wove them into their own traditions. So the Crusader feast was more than a celebration. It was a bridge, a fleeting moment where enemies sat together, where music from different worlds played in harmony, where for one night, breaking bread meant more than eating. It meant hope, that even in a time of war, there could be a table, a shared flame, a moment of unity. And though the castles are silent now, the echoes of those feasts remain in our kitchens, in our customs, in the simple act of sharing a meal. Because in the end, the greatest weapon in the Crusaders' arsenal was not the sword, it was the table. And so ends our journey, from the shame of the pillory, to the blood of the Colosseum, to the glory of the triumph, and finally to the candle-lit halls where power was served on silver platters. A reminder that history is not just written in laws and battles, but in how we choose to eat and who we choose to feed.